Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Sending gratitude to all of you who are joining in today to accompany us down the rabbit hole of self-exploration through plant medicines. My name is Ryan Sprague, and I'm here to tell you that your frequency is now set and tuned to explore psychedelic medicines and the impact they've made among the countless psychonauts exploring the last true frontier. Buy a ticket and take the ride with me as we get true first-hand accounts of the experiences, benefits, risks, and transformations taking place within the ever-expanding world of psychedelic medicines on This One Time on Psychedelics. Over the past year, I have taken a much deeper dive into the realm of astrology, and to say it has changed my life would be a severe understatement. Even though in modern times, many people believe astrology to be nothing more than woo-woo, in ancient times, astrologers were some of the most important individuals to the rulers of these civilizations, and they relied on them for almost every decision they made. And in this week's episode, we're going to take a deep dive with the woman responsible for showing me the true power behind this ancient form of inquisition, and hear how she first became interested in this realm, the psychedelic synchronicities that have occurred in both of our lives since we both dove deeper into this realm, and she's going to share with each of you her newest creation, combining quantum healing with astrology for improved awareness and quality of life as a whole. So please help me in welcoming my beautiful partner in crime, Rachel Varitimos, back to the show. Rachel Varitimos, it is so amazing to have your beautiful face on the screen with me here today. And like I said in the intro, guys, it had been a long time, quite a while actually, since Rachel and I did a podcast, and her and I are both obviously together, living together. We're doing our business stuff together in tandem all the time, but we figured we'd let you guys in on a little bit of our personal life recently, a lot of the stuff that Rachel's been getting into, and really just overall the psychedelic life that we live, because sometimes I fail to recognize that it is quite psychedelic. I mean, aside from connecting with psychedelic medicines, we do a lot of things that are crazy psychedelic. And so in this episode, we're going to break them all down. But first, I would love for you to give the listeners an update since the last time you've been on of what's changed. You know, you've switched to astrology. You're absolutely slaying it. Why don't you update the people, Ray?
Yeah, update. So last time I came on, I don't even remember what I talked about. So I'll talk about where I am now. I have started doing astrology, and I'm currently in the process of launching a new program with my somatic therapist called Lindsay. Called Limitless.
Her name is Lindsay.
My somatic therapist friend's name is Lindsay. She was my somatic therapist for a while, and I recently took her Limitless program, which she was teaching us how to manifest from the quantum realm. And I loved how she taught it, because I've realized a lot of the things that she taught is what I've been doing alongside astrology and how I've used astrology to change my life. And I know that I use astrology really differently than a lot of people, which is why I believe I've had so much success as an astrologer from the moment I came out as one. Like literally in December, it immediately picked up and started right away. And I am just so obsessed with astrology right now because I really feel like it makes you see how magical life is, how we're all basically just children, how we have this map that we get to follow and it's accurate. Like it's not just a map you're following that goes nowhere, that you just aren't sure if it's real or not. It's accurate. And so I'm really excited to talk about the magical ways I've been using astrology. Like the whole way I got into astrology was a magical story, and we can even touch on that. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm helping people use their astrology to get on their highest passion and purpose in life, to create their most fulfilling life. Because what I've realized is within astrology, there's certain archetypes within your chart. And just like with any archetype, there is the highest expression of it. There's the lowest expression of it. There's everything in between. It's limitless. There's limitless expressions of an archetype. And so in this manifestation program that I'm creating with my somatic therapist, because this is how I've used astrology, I've realized that what always blocked me from manifesting and feeling fulfilled and successful in my life before was I'd get too narrow. I'd get too specific with where I wanted to be. And that's how astrology has been so magical in my life, is it's helped me open up my perspective. It's helped me lean into general archetypes instead of being like, this is exactly who you are. And this is specifically how you're going to manifest yourself to be. And it's opened up a whole new world of possibilities beyond what my mind could have comprehended. And it's really like shows you things from out of the blue. And so, yeah, I'm excited to talk about that today.
Yeah. I'm really excited to dive into it too, because for anyone listening, astrology, human design, gene keys, these systems of knowing thyself to deeper degrees and being able to enact your best self, those things are so influential, or they have been influential in my life. They've been very influential in your life. And I think in the modern day, many of us fail to recognize how like everything can be told in astrology, right? Like, you've taught me a lot about just how powerful astrology can be when put into action. I think when I was growing up, I had a warped view of astrology, right? Of like, oh, astrology, that stuff, right? Like, because I was around a lot of people that just utilized it for like their sun sign. And they would basically just utilize astrology to have a scapegoat or externalize their power. Well, that's just me. I'm an Aries, or that's just me. I'm so-and-so. And so what I love about what you do and a lot of the amazing astrologers I see today is that they're saying, no, that's not just who you are. That's an archetype, like you were saying. And there's an ability to always get more in alignment with these archetypes within us. And I think that when we think about the process of transformation, I mean, really, it is synonymous with a psychedelic experience, right? Because when you're going through a transformative process, like we'll get to in this episode, it's like, those processes, you wake up feeling like a whole new person after that happens, right? And you had something like that happen recently, right? You actually had a cool story that if you're open to sharing it, I think the listeners would love to hear regarding the dreams that have been coming up for you. Because guys, there's a lot going on astrologically right now. It's been challenging for many of us, and Rachel will get into maybe what type of people might be being challenged right now, or what things to look out for, or kind of like what a little reading is for the future. But I'd love if you could share a little bit about what's been coming up for you in this psychedelic aspect of astrology, right? These dreams, these synchronicities, all this wild stuff happening.
I want to tell a backstory first before I tell that story, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
I really want to talk about using astrology as a guide to guide your life and how it can be the training wheels for you jumping into the unknown. A lot of people are in a state right now where they are sick of working a 9 to 5. They're sick of what they've always done. They don't feel in alignment. Old things aren't working anymore, and they feel frustrated. And it just feels like it's this tipping point of things are about to change, but who am I in this next era of evolution? And we are going into a new era of evolution with Pluto entering Aquarius. That's literally like a whole new generation beginning, a generation that's going to be full of booming technology and possibly power struggle. Oh, not possibly, definitely power struggles within technology. And it's about owning your uniqueness. And we're going to be breaking down hierarchies, Pluto and Capricorn, which we're really pushing our way out of this year because we're going to revert back to it in the second half of the year when Pluto goes retrograde. But Pluto and Capricorn was about hierarchies. It was about how can I get to the top? How can I be on top? How can I make the most money? How can I be the best? How can I get above this person? And Pluto and Aquarius is not about how can I get above? It's how can we do this together? How can I have enough? How can I live my best life and empower everyone else and find my most fulfilling life through empowering humanity and myself? And so one of the ways I love to use astrology is permission to jump into the unknown. So one of the things I was feeling back in September, I was about to host my last retreat, or I'll back up. I was about to host a retreat, and I had been feeling for a while that something was missing. And I had this pattern of every time I finished hosting a retreat, I would immediately launch the next one because I'd just be so high on the whole retreat experience. I couldn't help myself. But then what that would do is it would take up a portion of my brain and like a portion of my energy because I would be thinking about that retreat. And I was keeping myself in this loop of hosting retreats, but not allowing myself to actually break free because I still felt like something was missing. The retreat was perfect, but everything else, something else felt missing. So I had announced in September on the Pisces blue moon, and this was very intentionally, I literally used astrology as my training wheels. That Pisces blue moon, it was a full moon. Full moons are about releasing something. This Pisces blue moon was at the exact degree of my Pisces moon. And so it felt like a very personal release to me. And my Pisces moon is in the 6th house, which basically means my moon rules my work, my day-to-day routine, my habits, my health, but mainly like the day-to-day things I do in my work. And so even though it made no sense for me to tell the world that I was not going to host retreats again after hosting 6 retreats, even though I had all of my friends telling me, what are you talking about? You just built up momentum. You are just getting really good. You can't stop now. I just knew I had to announce to the world on the Pisces noon that I was releasing it. And I don't know where I'm going. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just knew I had to do that and follow my fun, because I'm all about following the fun. And I believe that's what astrology teaches us, is it teaches us that we've been conditioned to not have fun. We've been conditioned to live our life in a way that it was prescribed to us by society or someone else or our parents, when in reality, when you get rid of all the conditioning, when you brush it all away, when you dissolve it all away, you realize that everything you do in life is everything that's meant for you in life is something you actually want to do. It's actually pleasurable. It's actually blissful. It actually flows out of you. You don't have to force. Yeah, you do have to do some uncomfortable stuff to get to that space, to dissolve all the conditioning that's not yours, because we hold on to it with a tight grip. And that's why I like to use astrology, is it allowed me to be like, well, I want to hold on to this retreat with a tight grip, but I'm going to let it go because I know I need to create space for myself. And then over the course of that next 4 months, I decided to just do what was fun for me, because that was my intention. And I drove Lyft to pay my minimum bills because I wasn't bringing in money in my business. And I was learning astrology from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed. And I had no idea what I was doing with this. All I knew was I was learning astrology because it was fun and I was obsessed. Literally 3 months in to doing that, or 2 months into doing that, I had this thought, what the heck are you doing? Are you crazy? You shouldn't be doing that. Like, you literally had built this business up over 3 years and now look what you just ruined it. Like, where is this even going? But I kept going. I kept studying it like another month in. So 3 months in, I think you probably noticed this too. I could only talk through the lens of astrology. Like anytime I would talk to someone, it's like the only thing I could see and say and reflect. And I had this realization in that moment that I'm an astrologer. And it wasn't because I tried to be. It wasn't because I was like, I'm going to be an astrologer, so I'm going to stop doing retreats and I'm going to study and then become an astrologer. It was literally something that popped out of the blue. I surrendered to. And so I decided to announce it on Instagram that I was going to do astrology. And within 3 days, I could quit lifting. Like within the first month, I made more money that month than I had in monthly in the previous years of my business. And I continued to make that money in January and now this past February. And what it's really shown me is that when you have those feelings, you can trust them, number one. But number two, I can use the astrology as permission to trust them and to dive into the unknown and to continue to surrender even when it gets scary and to continue to follow my fun. And number three, it creates a lot of magic in your life. When you surrender and then you see the results, you're like, holy crap, all I had to do was follow those little breadcrumbs, track my astrology. And so to me, that's so, so magical. So what I knew for this month, which is what you had originally asked me about, was I knew February was going to be one of the most intense healing months of the year. I had told everyone in the beginning of the month, I warned everyone. I told them what I would do, what I do is I meet things with love. I've been doing my quantum limitless manifestation, the stuff we're going to be doing in our program. So I've been retraining my subconscious. I've been using my astrology, and I've been releasing patterns from my mom because I know I have a certain transit this month where I knew mother wound patterns were going to be released. It just, there's no other way to look at it. That's what I had expected this month. And so then I had this dream a couple weeks in that my mom had died in a house fire. And it was really, really scary because I woke up in the middle of the night and I woke you up and I was like, oh my God, I just had a dream that my mom died and it felt so real. And I've never had a dream that she's died before. And I'm scared. And you were like, don't worry, Rachel, I've had a dream you've died before and you're still here. And for some reason, I took it as a reason I could go back to bed. So I did. So,
I knew that would allow you to go back to bed. I was like, babe, I've had dreams before where you died. You're still here. You'll be good.
Yeah. So then I woke up in the morning and I woke up to a message from someone else saying that they had a dream that I had died. and that they went on and they texted me around the time that I had my mom's dream. It was like 2 a.m. Why? When does someone text you something at 2 a.m. that they had a dream you died, when I had just had a dream my mom died? And so when I got that message, I got really freaked out and I just started crying. I was like shaking, I was crying. And then I think like a few hours into like this shaking, anxious cry, I had this realization that my mom died in a house fire. Someone had a dream I died. Oh, I have been releasing this big mother wound, and it's released now. And I was feeling different. I was starting to act differently towards my clients. I was starting to act differently towards my friends. I'm starting to make different decisions that I didn't normally make because I was taught by my mom to be a martyr and to base my value on how much I can do for someone else, rather it being an equal value exchange and really honoring the value I bring. And so that was a huge lesson I learned after that dream, after I cried, after it was all crazy. And it was really cool to know my astrology that month and then to have that dream, because if I didn't know that I was going through a big transit to my moon, the moon represents your relationship to your mother. So Saturn was transiting my moon. Saturn can represent your grandfather. And this wound I have is passed down from my mom's dad to her, to me. It's a thing that he had embodied greatly. And so how many people have dreams like that or have healing experiences, but they don't fully integrate it or get to the other side or have the realization because they don't know exactly what they were processing or what it was related to. But because I knew the astrology, it's like it like supercharged it. It allowed it to like come through me so much faster and so much clearer and so much more efficiently, you know? And then I could place my intention the next day to really integrate it and continue the process of like not releasing it because I had released it, but embodying the new, right? Because once we release something, we must embody the new. So then as I was going on embodying the new, I knew it was like my next level of like owning my value and power, like a week later. And then I have this other weird dream. A bug went up my left nose. It was the feminine, like right as I was waking up in the middle of the night. And it felt so real that when I woke up, I literally snapped. I like held my nose with my hand, my left nostril, thinking I could crush the bug before it got to my brain, like while I'm awake, because it felt so real. And then I was just scared because I thought I had a bug in my brain. But very likely it was actually in the dream. I just was so confused. So I went to the kitchen to blow up a cannabis bag thinking I'll smoke a bag and I'll go to sleep. And while I'm blowing the cannabis bag, I'm like blowing out of my left nose, like holding my right nostril to snot rocket out of my left nose to try to get the bug out.
That's an official term, by the way, guys.
To try to get the bug out because I really thought there was a bug in my head, or I wasn't sure if it was a dream or not. And I couldn't get, and the next thing I know, I wake up on the floor. I had banged my head. I had passed out. I must have hyperventilated from the fear of having a bug in my nose and trying to get it out of my nose, that I passed out on the ground, not sleep, actually passed out. And I woke up to Pierre, our dog, barking like a freaking banshee. And I was confused. I was like, where am I? What's going on? I have to get back to my body. And I came to, and I realized I had literally like must have fallen back and slammed my head on the wood floor because I definitely got a concussion from that one. And then I went back to bed and I woke you up again. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I just passed out on the floor and there's a bug in my nose. And
I was like, what are you talking about, lady? I was like, you're having a whole fucking life during sleep.
And literally, it's funny because I looked up what a dream of a bug going in your nose is. It's like a fear of having to confront something. And the night before, part of me integrating this lesson, this release from my mom, part of me integrating that is setting boundaries and owning my value and possibly letting certain clients go, right? Like that's what I was too afraid to do in the past, but I'm not afraid to do anymore. And I was preparing myself that night before to let someone go, which is so uncomfortable for me and not something I want to do. I want to do everything I can for someone, but I just had come to this realization that if they don't meet me halfway, I can't do everything. And I don't need to feel this way. I don't need to be doing everything if the person's not, that's not what they pay me for. They pay me, we want to have a mutual relationship. And so that morning after the bug nose, it's like I had this new sense of empowerment where I was like, F it, I am owning my value. I don't give an F. And I sent a very amazing, I thought it was a great text that was kind, that was open to a conversation, but was very honest. And I felt like I was coming from my truth. And it felt facilitated by that dream somehow. Like it's somehow as if those two violent dreams were like whipping an old version of me out of my body, because I've been working so heavily with my astrology and with manifesting from the quantum. And I know from my somatic therapist friend, Lindsay, who we're doing this program together, that when you're about to release a pattern for good, it's like the ego holds on for dear life and screams and is like, "Wah, don't let me go." And it's like kicking and screaming and like throwing anything it can as a last ditch effort. And so like having that awareness in me, it's like anytime I feel that kicking and streaming come up after I feel like I've released a lot, it allows me to like do that final push of getting over the hump. And this whole process has been just changing my life in drastic ways. And so I'm just so excited to bring this to people. I've already showed people, even if I just give people readings, they get it. But it's like combining this quantum work with the astrology it's like an exorcism, and it's really amazing in the best way. An exorcism of everything that's not you, so you can be truly in your power.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to take a quick moment to let you all know that the doors are officially open for the Conscious Cannabis Collective. And as such, this is the last week you can sign up and receive all of the bonuses we're currently including. This is the last time I will be personally onboarding those of you who sign up with a complimentary one-on-one session, and you'll have the ability to get the Grow with Cannabis course for free during this limited time. For more info on how you can take advantage of this offer, head down to the show notes for this episode and secure your spot today, as we only have so many spots left and they are filling up quickly. Now back to the show. Yeah, 100%. You know, Hamilton Souther, he has, I think, the best terminology for this. Like, so imagine that when we're born, we're essentially a clean slate. Now, some people want to say ancestral lineage trauma, et cetera, but let's just imagine that we're a clean slate when we're born. So we are a pure state of joy. And then as challenges arise, we might feel emotions. And because we have not been informed yet that certain emotions are good and certain are bad, right? Which isn't actually true, but like that's what we get brought up in for many of us. Oh, you can't be sad, or stop crying. This isn't the right time for it. These kind of things. We start actually being able to release those things, right? When we're kids, we just release them. We come back to joy, release them, come back to joy, release them, come back to joy. Then our ego starts forming. We start getting stories around like, oh, I can't do this emotion in this certain area, things like that. So once these emotions start getting stuck in you, it's like you're going to get bogged down very heavily, right? And you're not going to have the bandwidth from which to actually live your best life, right? And so whether it's psychedelic, whether it's astrology, whether it's holistic health, all of these things, the goal in my mind is to get what Hamilton calls nonsense out of the way. Now, what nonsense is are the limiting stories, the beliefs, and anything that puts a distortion in between you and God, right? And for anyone that doesn't like the term God, put quantum on it, universe, source, whatever you want to call it. So it's like all of these things are able to do the same thing. And that's why I'm so fucking excited to talk about this, because what this show has been transforming into is not just experiences with psychedelics, but much more so like how all of life is psychedelic. That's what Terence McKenna meant when he said, when you get the message, you can hang up the phone, at least for a little while. When you start to see the magic in everyday life, that is the psychedelic reality that I speak about so often. And astrology and these kind of things, like they have some very qualitative aspects to them that I can't measure, that I know are ridiculously powerful. I know when I was asking you about our launch, we're going to be launching the CCC again with a couple new courses and whatnot. And I was like, hey, is April a good month? And you're like, yes, it is. Right. And I remember I was listening to the book Chaos Protocols that our friend Kristen, shout out to Kristen, she's the best, recommended to us. And the guy, it's a great book for anyone listening who wants to check it out. But I remember the guy in it had said that there was a chapter on astrology. He said something along the lines of, you know, I'm not going to tell you guys that astrology is important or unimportant, but what I will tell you is that if you lived 200-300 years ago and you were a king, the astrologer in your society would be the closest person to you. And he's like, so what I recommend is find an astrologer and keep them very close to you. And in that moment when I heard it, it just resonated as truth. As someone who just knew my sun sign for years and saw a lot of like very disempowering aspects of people practicing astrology, to now be aware of what you're doing and also so many other people that we've become close with, it is truly exceptional what this system can do. And to blow some wind in your sails, guys, like I have never seen someone in my life, right? Like I really believe that I'm good at learning, good at, understanding knowledge, things like that. But yeah, you guys ever have an experience where you're like, wow, I guess I'm an infant there. So like Rachel was saying, around September, October, she took this break. And when she was saying to you guys that she was listening from astrology from sun up to sundown, you might be thinking like what I think, like, I do a couple hours, I might take a break for lunch, etc. No, I'm talking this woman would be on a computer or listening to a book every second she was awake, every second, like crazy. And literally within a month, she was telling me more about astrology than I had ever heard from anyone. And I don't say that lightly, right? Like I've noticed it. You have a very specific brain. I've noticed it with the finance stuff we're into too. I won't get super into it here, but for anyone listening, I've had Brandon Joe Williams on. Rachel's brain is just ridiculous at learning stuff and memorizing and embodying stuff. And it's been amazing to see you have this transformation into astrology because, we've been together almost 7 years now, pretty much. And it's been amazing because I've watched you go from thing to thing, right? Trying things out just the same way I did. And I imagine a very similar feeling to you felt for me when I tapped into cannabis and started doing all this stuff with cannabis. It was the same feeling for you. Like when you tapped into astrology, there was a qualitative, not measurable aspect of me that just knew that's her thing, at least right now. Who knows about the future, but that is 100% exactly Rachel's thing. Like, and the way you do it, weaving story work and coaching into it too, and your one-on-one packages is just absolutely unreal. And some of the clients you've got to work with too, I've just heard you guys talking. You guys have so much fun. It's just like that's the biggest sign, right? Like if someone truly enjoys what they're doing, if you hear them laughing about it, if they're looking into it, even when they're not like quote unquote working, like that's a really good sign. I have clients ask me all the time, like, how will I know if I found my purpose? And I'm like, well, you'll be obsessed with it. It'll be an obsession to a certain degree. It doesn't mean that it will always be that, but you'll know you're on the breadcrumb trail when you can't stop looking into something.
Yeah. And also, I believe astrology can help you find your purpose. It's crazy if you get a birth chart reading, and I don't think all birth chart readings are equal because I've had some astrologers I think are amazing. And then, just like anything, some people are possibly wounded or not in their intuition, and they don't always share the information in a responsible, empowering way. And I really believe in empowering astrology readings and really being discerning with who you get a reading from. And I'm not saying that so everyone gets a reading from me. I'm saying that because I think it's important. So if anyone's ever got an astrology reading on here and you felt like crap after, please try again. Like, please go to someone else. I just would hate for anyone to be blocked off from this magic. But one thing I want to say is that astrology can show you your gifts. It can show you where you're a wise old woman. So Ryan, when you say that my gifts is my brain and my ability to learn and embody information, yeah, that's true. That's in my astrology chart. At your South Node in your astrology is where you're a wise old woman. And I have my South Node in Gemini in the 9th house, which is like everything you just said. Whereas you, for example, it shows so much why you're good at cannabis. And this is like a little bit more complicated of a path, but your South Node is in Cancer in the 11th house. Your greatest gifts is nurturing groups of people, being a nurturing presence for large groups of people. People feel really good in your presence. They feel nurtured. They feel cared for. That's your gift. But then if we take it a step further, your gifts are ruled by your moon, and your moon is in Virgo. So you're naturally want to be of service to people. It actually fulfills you and makes you feel healthy to be of service to people and to yourself. And to take it a step further, like your greatest gifts, your moon is then ruled by Mercury, which your Mercury is in Aries in the 8th house, which 8th house can rule taboo subjects such as plant medicine. So it's like you're great at nurturing groups of people and being of service and showing people, like paving a new path, Aries, paving the bold new path to show people how to use cannabis, which is a taboo topic because you have your Mercury and Aries in the 8th house. 8th house is taboo topics, like plant medicine. Like it's all combined into your greatest gifts. So astrology goes deeper and deeper and deeper with the layers, and it really involves the whole chart. But the whole chart can really point towards like a very like generally specific. I know that's kind of like an oxymoron, but it is generally specific because it's a specific archetypal path for you to follow that's going to show you your most aligned purpose. And that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about this program, because it's one thing for me to tell you this is your archetypal aligned path where your gifts are here. It's this energy, and then it goes to this energy and this energy, and it's all these energies combined, right? Like I can tell you all that, but then you're like, what do I do with this? Like I recently made, and maybe we can put it in the show notes here for anyone who needs it. I recently made a 31-page guide to help you decode your greatest purpose and the archetypes that are going to lead you to your most fulfillment in your birth chart. I had like 100 people download that free guide, and they got a lot of insight out of it. But then it's like, what do you do with it? And that's what we're teaching people to do in this program we're building is you take the energies and then you learn to swim in them. You learn to manifest from them. You learn to access the quantum fields, like the energy that's all around you, the limitless possibilities through swimming in them and through allowing them to bring you the clarity through the archetype, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally makes sense because, you know, what I understand about astrology, and this is where I think a lot of people get challenged with it, is that very similar to religion, they take things literally, right? So, you know, like you were mentioning the astrologers who may not frame things in a responsible manner, etc. You know, there were all these challenges because within an astrological reading, right, like you're not telling me or anyone else who they are. You are inviting them to consider how these certain things that you are illuminating fit into their life. And they're the ultimate one that gets to decide, like, what does all of this mean for me? Like, it's almost like you can give me the individual aspects of a hamburger, but it's up to me to make the hamburger how I want, right? You'll cook it for me. You'll make sure that every aspect is cooked properly, but how I actually put it together is up to me. And I think that the reason that astrology and things of that nature can be challenging, plant medicines included, is that for a lot of people, including myself, like I'm wired this way, I want to know, like, what is the equation? Okay, if my Aries is my sun sign, then all the time, this is what it means. And if my moon is a Virgo, this is what it means, right? And unfortunately, / fortunately, because there's always an opportunity within a challenge, it's not like that, right? Things shift, right? You've also allowed me to see that your whole astrological chart shifts in certain ways over time. And we can get into that if you want to. But this idea of being able to take accountability and work with someone, right, who's actually going to be able to understand that and say, hey, what does this all mean for you? And then they tell you, that means that I want to go do this, and this is what I want to start. And why coaching goes so well is you go, okay, cool. When are you going to do that by, right? And then all of the accountability coaching and everything like that comes into play because, you know, transformation, like I was mentioning with psychology and plant medicines, is not okay, add A and B together and you get C, right? It doesn't work like that. It's not linear. You might go up a little bit and be like, oh my God, I'm on such a high, I figured everything out, and then crash, right? And then maybe climb a little bit back up and then stabilize for a little while. And so this happens with all of life, right? It's not just astrology. And that's why I always suggest to people, like, work with some type of coach, mentor, guide, etc., for whatever it is, because if you don't, it's going to take you a lot longer to get where you want to go. And it's going to end up costing you a lot more money. I've tried it both ways, right? You've tried it both ways. I would not be where I am today if I didn't work with a shit ton of different mentors and coaches, and likewise for you, you know? So I'm really glad we're talking about this because, you know, I always want people to walk away from the show with not just an intellectual understanding, but an awareness around maybe some things that they might be missing, some things that I've missed that I can share, some things that you missed that you can share, so that hopefully someone else doesn't have to make the exact same mistakes, right? Maybe they do. Maybe that's part of their karma, but maybe they don't. And they're able to go out there and make, you know, just more informed choices and use discernment to a deeper degree to allow astrology, plant medicines, etc., to be able to allow them to access their best self and realize that they are the other component of that equation, right? They must put things into play. They must actually do something with it after they get the reading. Like, I know you don't want people to come to a reading and just go, that was awesome, and then turn the page and forget about it the next day. Oh my God,
that would make me so sad. If someone literally just wanted a reading to know things and didn't do anything with it after, like, that's why I love astrology. Is every time I personally get a psychic reading or astrology reading, I do something about it. I change my life in a drastic way. And yeah, it could be important to have a coach to help you actually implement it, because some people are too afraid to actually release the conditioning because it feels protective to them, right? Because this is new for them. And I actually think like one of the things that I'm here to do with astrology and what we're doing in this program Limitless that we're going to be launching soon, which by the way, we have a masterclass for that. We can talk about that coming up. It's the fact that when you have to go to your next level, it requires some sort of jumping into the unknown. And so many people are so afraid of that, like so afraid of it, they'll never do it their whole life. And they'll make it to their deathbed and regret that they didn't do it. And here's the thing with astrology is it will give you the energies that are pushing you to jump into the unknown and off the cliff. Like that story I told in the beginning of this, I had this full moon. I had a choice to jump off the cliff or not, but I could use astrology as an anchor to jump off the cliff. So having a guide who holds your hand while you trust the anchor to jump off the cliff to me is just as important on the journey. So yeah, I agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah. And to give an example for me too of how this worked, right? Like I know you've supported me a lot in this too, but for anyone listening, I don't mind being vulnerable and opening up, right? So around the first of the year, which we would say is New Year's, but technically Gregorian calendar is inaccurate, but let's just say for lack of a better term that it was the new year. And, I had been feeling some stuff for a while. I had been feeling like, holy shit, my life is moving very fast right now. I'm saying yes to a lot of things. And that's not inherently bad, but I was starting to feel like, okay, like if every day is like this now, like even my weekends, where like I'm getting back to social media, I'm doing all these things and just keeping everything going, I started to really ask myself, like, is this really what I want my life to look like? Yes, I want to go out there and do anything I can to bring more awareness to cannabis and help people, gain higher quality of life, but at what expense, right? And so I really started like probably around October, November was really when I started hitting like a breaking point of just like, okay, I have been really pushing the needle for like the last 3 years, getting on any and every podcast, just saying yes to every networking call, saying yes to everything, just get me out there. And that was great. For the first couple of years, it felt in alignment. Yeah, there were times that were stressful for sure, but like it felt like it was in alignment. But all of a sudden, I just started feeling this feeling inside of like resentment. And so I started to ask myself, okay, what is this feeling illuminating for me, right? What part of me is looking for love and what is its message for me? And so it was right around December, like the end of December, where all of a sudden the awareness just opened up of like, I'm done with that chapter of my life. Like, I'm not going to just say yes to everything anymore. My main intention is to build my business and everything around the life that I want. And so you were mentioning before, right, about, having to, really distance yourself with some clients and speak your truth and things like that. It was a very similar experience for me over the last couple of months where I'm the only one to blame, right? I wasn't blaming the world for any of this. Like, I make my schedule, you know what I mean? But I started realizing like, hey, I think that I'm running a pattern here that I learned through my parents, that to be successful is to hustle constantly. Like I watched my parents, and my parents are amazing. For anyone listening, they give me the perfect childhood. They're awesome. And just like any human, they have some challenges and some distortions. And so they also grew up in an era too that was very different. Their parents were part of the Great Depression. So like, I'm not blaming them for growing up with the patterns they did, but I'm starting to realize like that's not the pattern I want my life to be in. And so you've supported me a lot with the astrology and just being able to really center into that. And it wasn't an overnight thing, guys. Like this is, it's still ongoing, but it's really taken a couple of months to, be able to, first of all, open myself back up to some of my old hobbies that I used to love, be able to make my life more than just the business, because I fucking love what I do, but also like we have a life, right? We got a dog, we got all these things that are amazing. I want to go take walks. I want to do Muay Thai. I want to do all this stuff, right? So I took accountability and was like, okay, this is my opportunity to love myself to deeper degrees and maybe have to say no more often, right? And that's okay, because at the end of the day, like there was a time for the old pattern, right? It served me. It was great. I'm very grateful for it. And it's not the pattern that's going to get me any farther. And I only knew that because you were able to support me in that time after time when I was going through, a lot of challenges and coming out just like, oh my God, what's going on? And you'd be like, oh, well, this is going on right now. Does this resonate? I'm like, fuck, that actually does bring a lot up for me. And so guys, this is actually how it played out for me in real life. It's real.
Well, and to take it a step further is it's like the transits are playing out for you right now. And this is a pattern in your birth chart that you're likely going to have to overcome, right?
Yeah.
Like in everyone's birth chart, they have this asteroid. Well, there's a few different things that would make Ryan this way. He's a Virgo moon, Virgo rising, right? His moon rules his south node, where I said your south node is your gifts, but it's also where you've overdone it and got some wounding. And so we could literally track through his birth chart where his wounding stems from his moon, his mom, and like she was go, 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 just the same way you were. And so you learned it from her. And so your birth chart can provide you very clear awarenesses in that way. But then I was also going to say there's this asteroid called Ceres, and Ceres is how we learn to nurture ourselves and how we want to nurture other people. And we learned this nurturing aspect of ourselves through some sort of loss or some sort of pain and some sort of rejection. And through the pain, we learn to nurture ourselves in this way. And so therefore now we nurture others in this way. And for you, it's in Scorpio in the third house. And so one of the things for you is having very like controlled, obsessive thinking, because the third house is your thinking, your communication, and Scorpio is all about obsession and control and even power struggles. And so we also were able to track back where you learned that pattern from your parents as well, how you learn to nurture yourself and others in that way from that pattern. And so to me, like astrology is one of the best. It's like a therapy session. Like when you work with someone who knows what they're doing, they can backtrack and show you all the threads of why you are the way you are and who you truly are and what's actually possible for you and capable for you, because in astrology, there's also your midheaven, which your midheaven is how people see you, how you're meant to be seen in the public eye, like the legacy you're meant to leave behind. Like there's so much in your chart.
It's literally astounding, guys, because you know what it did for me? I mean, it did a lot for me, but the number one thing was validation, because I think that many of you guys listening maybe feel similar to me. Like I completely believe in intuition, obviously, duh, right? I completely believe in clairsenses. I completely believe in the unseen realms. And I also am a human with a left brain as well. That sometimes is like, well, how do I really tell intuition or things like that? So what can be great about astrology is that most of the time, I would say about 90% of the time anyway, that Rachel will tell me something. The epiphany that I have is not that I've never felt it before. It's that I've actually known that for a long time. And so it's helped me really start diving into like, what is that part of me that knows and what else does it know? And so I've been able to start trusting it more. And when it comes up, I now know what to do with that information. And the same way that all the time on here, guys, I'm talking about how we must integrate our plant medicine experiences. This is why, right? Because we have these things inside of us that always know the answers, right? We've just been trained to look in other directions. And these things, astrology, plant medicines, human design, gene keys, all of these things, coaching, teaching, all of these things, if you really boil them down, they're meant to help you get back to who and what you truly are, right? To get back to these aspects of you that are all knowing, right? To get back to the aspect of you that is God in human form, so that you can enact your ability to, as many people say, die before you die, and be able to allow that, ego death or any of these kind of things to propel you back into why you're really here and what your mission is. And like you were saying with, I forget the exact terminologies you used, but with this, movement into, I think it's Pluto and Aquarius, I think you were saying, that totally makes sense. If you think about all these things that I just mentioned, right? Like this ability of like, how do I want my life to look? Right? Like that's a very Pluto and Aquarius thing for me, right? Like instead of saying like, how can I just go get as much done as possible? It's like, how do I want my life to look? And as a result of that, I'm like, who else can I collaborate with that we can all support each other in being able to build something amazing? And as such, we won't have to work as much because we're all working together, right? Joint ventures and all these things I started getting into around October. So it's very interesting to see like these quantitative metrics of what I've been getting into, what's been resonating with me, and then the aspect of the qualitative science of astrology and how that's really been validating for me of like, wow, I've really known the whole time. And so it allows you to settle more into that ability to realize like, I can have faith in life, like I can now see that the amount of work I've done to get myself back to a clearer picture of who and what I am, always got work to do, right? But it was really an amazing opportunity to start going, wow, I really listen to my inner voice, like, because I had a big belief system, like I was mentioning before, that like, I don't even really know what that is. Do I listen to it? I don't know. And it's kind of funny, right? Because when I say it, I'm like, geez, dude, if you look at the last 4 years of your life, it's been you listening the whole time. But I wasn't aware of that until you started teaching me astrology. And I started going, I got that down too. Wait, that was right. Okay, that was right. And there were times that I noticed I didn't, right? Like, of course, but being able to go, wow, that's what happens when I listen to it. And that's what happens when I don't. Okay, I'm going to keep listening to it. It's like it allows you to be a little bit more of a scientist, right? True science, not the science that, people say to trust, but a real science, right? Like a real scientist, and being able to go, wow, let me do little experiments here. Those things I went through the last couple of years, let me see what astrology is saying. Oh, wow, that's pretty similar. And it allows you to create hypotheses and then go out and have a more empowered version of reality. So I think it's awesome.
Yeah. And I think I want to add to what you had just said around it helping you follow your intuition. I find that I use it as a permission slip to not second guess myself. And I can't tell you how much energy that saves you. We don't realize how much we second guess ourselves. We don't realize how much mental energy that takes for our creativity, for actually pursuing the life we want, for continuously moving forward and like actually getting unstuck. Since I started learning astrology and following the patterns and like leaning into the archetypes and leaning into what I know is the highest expression of my chart and the highest expression of the current transits, I feel like I'm a psychic person now. Like I have all my friends tell me it seems like I have the map to the cosmos in my head. Like I know everything that's going to happen. And it does feel partially like that. And it's truly because I have been watching the transits play out. I've memorized most of my friends' birth charts and I watch them play it out. Like I literally observe people constantly. And if I've actually learned something recently about how we used to be a much more intuitive race of people, like humanity was much more intuitive. And when we switched to language, words, we actually kind of disconnected ourselves from our intuition, because intuition is more multidimensional. Intuition is more right. It's right brain, but I also believe we can use the left brain. I actually believe sometimes the perfect intuition is a mix of both, like figuring things out, the right brain receives, the left brain like puts it into order,
Connects.
Right? Connects things together, connects images. And that's how we used to live before we had languages. Before we had technology, we would notice the sun, we would notice the oceans, we would notice nature, and it connected us to our instincts. It heightened our instincts, it heightened our intuition, and it allowed us to think in a completely different way. And so I see bringing astrology into this day and age when we're more disconnected than ever because of technology, like bringing astrology into the mix is a way for us to cultivate our intuition as we're going through this giant like technical revolution.
Yeah, 100%. Like what's so great about this too is that it's one of the reasons I love biogeometry, right? Because it says, a lot of people are like, oh, technology sucks, right? Oh my God, we've gotten way too off course. And yeah, that might be true. But at the same time, I don't believe technology is bad. The same way that I believe cannabis is not bad, the same way I believe psychedelics are not bad, the same way I believe nothing is bad unless we make it so, right? Like, at the end of the day. And so being able to allow all of these things to merge back together, right? Like biogeometry is a perfect quantitative example. Wear these pendants, have a cube in your house, and now you can use technology without it hurting you, right? So like at the same time, it's like, hey, even though we have all of these technological advancements and potential distractions in our life, we can still utilize a system like astrology to be able to have our cake and eat it too, to be able to have amazing conversations like this, where we're able to get this information out of the world, but still be able to allow ourselves to tune back into that right brain state of being rather than the left brain state of doing. And again, it's not that either is bad. It's just that maybe they were out of balance a little bit, and I think that's what we're noticing in society right now with the age of Aquarius, just overall, is that we've had this hyperpolarization of what society calls masculinity. It's not masculinity, but that's what they call it. But we've had this hyperpolarization of this like go, 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 lone wolf, conquer the world, cut down your brother to get to the top type thing, right? Like you were mentioning with Pluto in, what was it?
Capricorn,
thank you. Now we're moving into something where, people say all the time, oh my God, the world's never been this bad. There's so many things happening. Look at the Hollywood pedophilia and look at politics and all these things. And I'm like, guys, that's been happening for a long time. It's not that things are worse than ever. We're just more aware than ever. And the analogy I always give is it's like the messy closet, right? It's that we've walked by a messy closet that we've known was messy for a long time. We felt it, But this is the first time that as a society, all of us have opened the door and actually chosen to start cleaning the closet. And the hardest part of that equation is when you open the door and you recognize how messy it is. And that's where we are in society. Some of us have already started cleaning the closet. Some may already have their closet clean, right? But a lot of society is having to have that hard truth of when you're a kid, you've been shoving all your stuff in that closet. And then your parents are like, hey, I know what you're doing. Go clean the closet. And you're like, oh my God, that's like 10 room cleans worth of stuff, right? Like you go through that like, oh my God, it's going to be so hard. And then at a certain point you go, well, I guess I got to clean it. So I might as well do it. Then the third stage is you actually start cleaning it and you start going, this isn't that bad. Oh, this is it. This is all there is. Okay, cool. Right. And so we're seeing a divide between people that are at each stage of that process, right? White knuckling, not having the closet door opened, knowing that it's going to open, having opened it and being okay with how messy it is. And all right, I'm going to start cleaning it, or in the process of some sort of cleaning it. And I think that the more that we move towards that, the more that more and more people start tuning into who and what they are, more and more people start really distancing themselves from the mainstream media and things like that. I think the more that we'll start seeing this entire shift continue to take form. And around this, we're going to need a lot of guidance, right? Like humanity is going to need a lot of guidance. And this is what wise elders used to do. And even though we have a lot of elders, we don't really have too many wise elders anymore. And so a lot of us, right, elders included, are starting to pick up systems like this, whether it's meditation, astrology, all of the above, plant medicines, whatever, because what we're looking for is some sort of guidance, because we're all aware, even if it's not conscious. So many of us are becoming aware now that this isn't how life is supposed to be. We might not have the language for it and be able to actually give evidence for it, but a lot of us are just waking up to like, what am I just going to work at this 9 to 5 forever that doesn't even care about me, and they're going to mandate me to get these stupid things in my body that I don't want, and if I don't get them, they're going to try to get me to lose my job. It's like there's never been a better time to be your own boss. There's never been a better time to decouple the financial system. Like we're actually watching, if you look at polarity, right? The hyperpolarization of masculinity, I feel like was the 80s and 90s specifically, just like this grind, drink as much cups of coffee as you can, just get your office work done, etc. And now as we're getting past 2012, we're swinging completely into the feminine, which is like, let's just burn everything, And now the goal is to find a middle point where it's like some things need to get burned, but we might not want to start from ground zero, So yeah, it's a really exciting time.
Oh, totally. I totally agree with you. I'm excited where we're heading. I feel like we're about to unlock new ways of creating our own reality that we never knew before. I believe that the secret, that whole manifestation process, is about to be turned on its head, and we're going to actually realize more of the intricacies of it. And I say that without kind of tooting my own horn, just because I'm so excited for this manifestation program. I've mentioned it so many times, but it's mainly because I'm so excited for this program me and Lindsay are coming out with, because I really believe it's going to change the game for people and bring people back to ancient times where we were connected to nature, where we were connected to the fact that everything is bigger than us, that X plus Y doesn't, or 1 plus 1 doesn't always equal 2, that things aren't always linear, that we live in a more emotional society than we realize, and that we have so many tools around us to attain our highest level of life through learning to follow the stars, through learning about your astrology, through following the transits, and through learning to tap into the quantum field, which to me is the connection between you and all things. And when you learn to feel that, like I'm sure people listening to this, because this is a psychedelic podcast, and maybe you've even witnessed it. I know people have witnessed this in Breathe with Cannabis with you, like the oneness. Maybe someone listening to this has had a acid or mushroom trip where you've experienced the oneness. I've experienced oneness on a really intense mushroom tea we did one time. And to me, when you learn astrology and you start following that, and that brings magic to your life, and then you learn how to connect to that fabric, that oneness fabric, and leave your energy open instead of constricted, I just believe it's going to change the game for everyone, because we've been taught to constrict our energy. Like I think about it, this might be TMI, but I feel like we can talk about this on here.
Go for it.
Yeah. Like if we think about sex, right? Like so many of us have been taught to push out an orgasm. Like we have girls like getting vibrators being like, I just need to give myself a quickie. Let's just have a quickie. But really it's not coming from a surrendered state, because they're like contracting their internal muscles to have an orgasm, to force it out really quickly. And that's what I see we're doing in society too. Everything's a reflection of the body. And that's another thing we're doing in this program. She's a somatic therapist. What we've learned is the more you open up connections in your body, you open up new awarenesses in your brain. So we've been taught to force. We've been taught to look at one path. We've been taught to look at things linearly.
Say that 3 times fast.
I know. We've been taught to look at it that way. And what it does is it cuts off your limitless potential. It cuts off the possibilities. And so I believe as we move into this new age, we're going to be following the astrology, which requires an open awareness, but we're also going to learn that anytime we get too narrow in our thinking, anytime we try to obsess and control and like get this tunnel vision of how things should be, or we can't surrender because maybe something doesn't go exactly the plan you had laid out and now you're having a freaking fit. When you learn to open to the quantum, you really embody the knowledge that when things don't work out, it's because something better is coming. And instead of narrowing your energy, you open it back up. And I believe that that's where we're heading into, is a spiritual evolution, a psychic evolution, where we realize we've been taught to contract, go narrow, think really tightly, think logically, when that's cut us off from our power. And we're all going to be opening up like a flower blooming, like a flower blossoming in the summer. It like slowly opens up and like shows all its beauty. So I'm just really excited for that. And that's kind of like the final thing I felt like.
No, it's amazing. You know, Aaron Abke, we always talk about how, like, you know, okay, in society, what Star Wars movie are we on, right? If we looked at society like a Star Wars saga, and I would always tell him, like, dude, I feel like we're in Return of the Jedi. And he's like, no, my friend, we are in The Force Awakens. Because if you think about all the finance stuff, which we won't get into here, but if you guys want to check out the Brandon Joe Williams episode, you'll learn a lot more about that. If we look at the finance stuff, we look at law, if we look at empowerment, if we look at health, any of these things, we're starting to realize that the force is awakening within us, that we get to be our own gurus. We get to be our own healers. We're realizing that the powers that be, whoever the hell they even are, have never had any power. It's almost like someone who's wearing an inflatable muscle suit, right? So you think they're scary when you just see their shadow. And then when the light actually hits them, you're like, dude, you're wearing floaties. I could just flick you over, right? So like, we're starting to realize that those of us that are beginning and are choosing to come with love is the governing force of the universe. It is the equation that equals everything. So the opposite of love is not just hate, it's nothing. And so when these powers that be are coming from greed, hatred, etc., they are coming from that which is nothing. And so when we start realizing we have everything within us, this is exactly what you're talking about. And we're seeing it happen right now. Like if you have an eye to see, not just eyes to look, but an eye to see and ears to truly listen, not just hear, then you're already seeing this happen, right? You're already seeing this upheaval, this kind of like flushing out of a lot of these things. And so I'm really excited. And babe, I love you so much. This has been amazing. Where can people find you? Where can they find out more about the masterclass? Where can they find out more about the guide? We'll put the guide and the date for the masterclass in the show notes, but I'd love if I could hear it right from your mouth.
Yeah, we can put the link for the masterclass in the show notes too. So the masterclass is on March 10th, and I'm pretty sure we're going to do a second one on March 17th. And then the program's going to start in April, which I'm in Aries season, because it's like the start of the astrological new year. We're helping people really like start their new life, start their new way of being, living magically. So you can find me on Instagram at Rachel_Varitimos. You can book a birth chart reading with me there too. You can sign up for the Limitless Masterclass to learn more about it. Then sign up for the program if you'd like. It's going to be a 12-week program. I'm so I can't wait to run it. I'm just like, can we like just get to the program already? Because I think it's going to be so fun. But the masterclasses are going to be so fun too, because they're going to be like little tasters. So yeah, find me on Instagram at Rachel_Varitimos. Or TikTok at Shine Your Ray Astrology. And you can book readings with me there, join the masterclasses and all of that.
Beautiful. And Ray, I've already asked you the typical last question that we typically ask. So I'm going to frame this a different way, on point, and we'll see how it comes out. Sound good? All right. So let's say someone listens to this episode and they're extremely excited to look into the idea of psychedelic living to a deeper degree, whether it's astrology, psychedelics, etc. What is the one piece of advice that you would suggest to them to use the proper discernment in choosing what practitioners, what modalities to work with? What would you give them for advice?
Notice how you feel around different people. And before you go and have a conversation with someone, get really clear on how you want to feel in the presence of someone. And I say that because some of us are more porous than others. Me, for example, if you have a water moon, or if you're a water sign, if you have a lot of water in your birth chart, I have a Pisces moon, I can be very porous. And when I get around other people, sometimes it's almost like I can feel their energy, that I get confused what's mine and what's theirs. And so I find that before going into an interaction, if I can get really clear on how I want to feel and what I value, and then I can go into it and constantly check in with, do I feel this way? That to me is the best guide. Like, your feelings really are your guide, and it's a way to connect with your intuition. And it's a way for you to practice it as well. So I'd say do that.
Beautiful. I love that. Spoken like a true goddess. Everybody at home, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Rachel, along with being the love of my life, is the best astrologer I have ever spoken with. I promise you guys, you get a birth chart reading from her, your life is going to shift. I am extremely grateful that I get to live with her and be with her, because the shift is nonstop. Make sure you give her a follow on Instagram and on TikTok as well. Make sure you bookmark that link for the masterclass. That's going to be absolutely amazing. And wherever you guys are in the world, I hope you're all having the best day of your entire life, to infinity and beyond. Love you guys. Peace.